Baroness Rawlins, headmaster, parents, students and staff, and of course you very special students. When I was asked to come and speak to you and give you your well-earned prizes, I think everyone's behind me. That's right. And my goodness, what a lot of talent you have here, and having it especially in this beautiful hall where so much music is played. My first thought was, what am I going to talk about? To say to you that which has probably been said to many students before, advise you to value the years you spent here, do well in your chosen careers, is of course I wish you all that. And looking at the website of the school, you have been very fortunate to have the opportunity to come here and study. But a few days ago, I was looking at something to read, and I spotted a small booklet called Historky na koho se nezapomíná. Tales of people you should not forget, or should it be one should keep remembering? And it was written and given to me by a most amazing woman, Jaroslava Mozerová. She was a singularly gifted woman. She could have been a pianist, a downhill ski racer, an artist. She was a playwright, a diplomat, a translator of all Dick Francis novels, nearly your president, but above all, a plastic surgeon who attended young Palach when he set himself alight, and she tried to assuage, to alleviate his burns, sadly to no avail. In her booklet, she wrote about people both from her past and of the time present, always with good reason to tell of their worth, goodness, friendship. And this led me to picking up my autograph book, which was given to me the day before I left on that Winton train in 1939. And I realized, here's a piece of history I'd like to share with you. And I was then 9.5 years old. Now the entries are both in Czech and in English, and luckily you understand both languages. Milenko, buď zdravá, hodná jsi a opatruj Nemičku, my 3.5-year-old sister. Často napiš, líbá tě hrozně babička, wrote my grandmother. In England, my sister and I were adopted by a Mr. and Mrs. Radcliffe, whom we soon learned to call Mummy and Daddy Radcliffe. They lived in what was in England known as terrace houses, 2 rooms downstairs, front room and a kitchen with a bath, and 2 bedrooms. They had a daughter called Mary, but as they did not want to separate us, they sent their daughter to live with their grandmother. And Daddy Radcliffe wrote in my autograph book, to give is to receive, Milena and Ella, always in our memories. During the war, there was in England a Czechoslovak government in exile, which in 1942 set up a Československá státní škola ve Velké Británii, a Czechoslovak state school in Great Britain. I was one of the few children whose parents had escaped, but that's another story. So eventually we were reunited. But my father decided, after 2 years of English, to send me to the school to get a Czech education. The school was in Wales, in a very small town called Llanwrtyd Wells, situated in the Brecon Hills. And our teachers came from the Czech Army, which was by 1940 camped in England, but one of the professors of chemistry, Dr. Veer, a Scot, who had a wonderful Scottish accent when he spoke Czech, because he taught here in Prague at the English college which existed before the war. More than 6 years on, Llanwrtyd Wells is twinned with Chesapeake Krumlov, and this summer the mayor is coming to visit, but that's another story. In my autograph book, in school, my autograph book was with me. Here is what my maths teacher, who absolutely despaired of me, wrote. Sedávej, panenko, v koutě, budeš lihodná na jodě. Mileno, nic se ti neřiď. I tend not to think about it too often. I still can't count. But my professor of Czechtina, Professor Krushina, he wrote, Milena zpívá však ta pěnice, škoda, že tam mají takové mluvice. Mileno pomni, ta naše mluvička zrovna tak pěkná je, jak naše písnička. So maybe a few lessons from Mrs. Schindler here would be good for me. Now, names of 5 Czech airmen, young men who came to school to take their matriculation from the Squadron 311, stíhací pilot. I really can't remember them, but I must not forget them. Could they have also been imprisoned here by the communist regime when they returned after the war for fighting for the British and for their own country, as many of the Czech airmen and soldiers were? President Beneš visited on Sinai Rock, and I treasure another signature. Mileně Fleischmanové se srdečným pozdravem Jan Masaryk. In 1944, a Czech film producer, Jiří Weisskin, came with his cameraman to make a film called Children in Exile. He wrote Mileně na památku za filmování v Československé státní škole. And the cameraman wrote, obrázky uvidíš, až budeš velká a šťastná doma. But it was nearly 40 years before any of us saw that film, which was confiscated by the regime and archived. Found by one of us who worked in the Czech TV grown up, secretly smuggled out, copied many times for us grown-up children now living in 11 different countries. There are pages signed by, and you won't know what this is, Sekunda, your older parents will know, Tertie, Kvarta. You're probably year 11, year 9, you're totally different, yes. And the fact those were the classes that were called in our school. 50 names, many of which I keep remembering, and a few whom I'm still in touch with. And not all the entries are serious. We were a happy motley crew of school children. One entry. S tebou je kříž, však dobře víš, jak mě zlobíš s tím památníkem. Nemám vlohy na žádné zloby, tak bez velké zloby tě vyrazí s tím tvým památníkem. Somebody called me Australia, and I thought that was a In 1943, on the page of my class, is a signature. Silva Vendakova. In 1964, when she, like me, was living in England and visiting me, she wrote, 21 years later, after a whole lifetime filled with joy and sorrow, I take up this book and look back on the days gone by, and realize all too clearly how valuable a possession can love and friendship be. Practically all those children, my school friends, when they returned back home, found no one and nothing and not wanted, went out into the world, worked, studied, and eventually became doctors, lawyers, teachers in France, America, Australia, Italy, Israel, and still we kept in touch. Take Joe Shadegger, for instance. He worked as a steward on a ship to get to Canada, held down a job while he went to night school, and eventually became, and still is, the most famous war correspondent in Canada, now in his 80s, and until recently had a weekly program on the radio. Joe Allen went to Israel, and together with another school friend, Hugo Maron, became two of the founders of the Israel Air Force. Joe was the fighter pilot, and there is a road named after him in Israel. But many of the names in my autograph book could tell a tale. Those who stayed here and had many very unhappy years from the oppressive regime, too many stories, too little time to recount it all. Our schooling was entirely in Czech. English was taught by a wonderful teacher called Miss Mackenzie, known as Miss Mac. But we were being reminded that we were the future citizens of the free Czechoslovakia, and we were proud to think that. After the war, when we all went our different ways, my autograph book was occasionally brought out, and then for many years put away, until 1985, when 40 years after the war we had a reunion. 90 of us came back to the old school, now as pre-war a hotel, and the book helped to rekindle memories and renew friendships. In the last few years, however, it's become part of the story I tell in schools and other communities about how we found the man who saved my life and the lives of nearly 700 other children. Nicholas Winton, a story many of you already know and may have seen in the film Nick's Family. And this is about remembering, not forgetting birthdays, anniversaries, your friends' parents, and also not forgetting where you come from. One birthday I can never forget is of the man born on May 19, 1909, to whose 103rd birthday party I attended last week, Nicky, or Nicholas Winton, whose name is now also in my autograph book, facing the page of the very first person who gave it to me and wrote on the evening before my departure. 9 o'clock at night on the 31st of July 1939. Milenko, buď pamětливá toho, aby si byla věrná dcerou národa, z kterého jsi vyšla. Věrná tvým milých rodičů, jako i dědečkovi, který tě má tak mnoho rád. I never saw my grandfather, who along with my grandmother and other aunts and uncles wrote in that book again. But finally, it's not a dumb person, but a number I will never forget. And that is the label which we wore around our necks on the journey to freedom. My sister, who was then 3 1/2, in her later years wrote a poem about this label, which I'd like to read to you. But before I do, my message is, be proud of who you are and where you come from. Keep your friends, many of whom you will have probably made here at college. We stayed in England after the war. I'm married and I have an English family, English grandchildren, great-grandchild, but I shall never forget where I came from, and I am very proud of my heritage. Some of you may be hoping to work abroad, but don't lose your Czech identity. I tell people that the Czech hymn has such meaningful words. Remember, Česká země, domov můj. And this is a poem. My number, a label around my neck in timber transport days, where numbered children alone were transported to foreign lands to save them and their lives. My number, 639, has become a symbol in my ancient years of vast significance. The label, tattered, torn, misspelled, yellowed from years past, from broad-bellying and neglect, lost sometimes, oft mislaid, showed with interest on occasion, but returned to oblivion. My label sits now in Shell Community, framed, affirmed, and absolute in its blue and gold and flowers, touching the other pictures of my life. A suitcase doesn't mind the affixation of its numbers on its way to somewhere known, expecting, always, eager greeting at the carousel, and luggage labels still exist, leather, acrylic, in bright colours, special stripes, codes and places of destination. But I, a former child, do mind the numbers on my label, travelling its way to places unknown, the spring still rubs my soul. But down, in a different point, the label boldly lives, declaring life's truth on my 639. On that brown, tattered label, good lives with evil, past is in present. A life was saved, declared my battered, honourable label. Thank you.